Hello, everybody. Welcome to this LinkedIn Live slash stream on YouTube slash stream on Facebook about the psychology behind videos that win clients. I'm really excited to dive into this with my co-host, Brooke Miles. And I will quickly introduce myself, and then Brooke, I'll have you introduce yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm Justin, everybody. I run Dialogue Video Marketing. We're a remote agency for video content production. And so we work with subject matter experts and emerging thought leaders on capturing those videos and then publishing them everywhere. And that solves two of the problems people deal with, which is number one, what do I even say? How do I make time? We solve that problem. And then the second problem we solve is actually getting that content out there. I don't know about you, but a lot of people sit on the videos they record for sometimes years and it never goes anywhere. We solve that by also taking care of that part as well and posting it to all the places. So that's me. And then Brooke, I'll have you go next.
Absolutely. So I'm Brooke Miles with Delaware Shoutout. I'm a LinkedIn consultant specifically focusing on LinkedIn marketing. However, I have used YouTube very successfully for attracting new clients literally all around the world. And I'm a huge believer in using video as a way to meet those new people, meet your ideal client. So that's why it's just a perfect opportunity to speak with Justin. So Justin, thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's a good point is that, Brooke, you have been, for those attending who don't know Brooke, who know me, I've been extremely impressed by Brooke's YouTube presence. If you don't know, she has a YouTube channel there, and like she mentioned, and I definitely recommend it if you want to get serious about LinkedIn, because I watched some of her videos and I was like, this is like top tier quality. So very rare to have somebody that's very good at one platform, also very good at another platform. And so I would just want to hype up Brooke for all I can right here because of that. So we're going to talk. You bet. Absolutely. You deserve to be hyped up. So, Brooke knows LinkedIn and YouTube. I know short form across variety of platforms. I also know LinkedIn. So we're going to bring all that knowledge today about not just the platforms, which is important, the technical know-hows, but mostly we're talking about psychology today, right, Brooke?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about
it all comes to that, because if you can't get into your audience's heads, what's the point?
Right. Yeah. These are principles that apply to every kind of platform, any situation. So that's the good news about what you're not going to learn. We're not going to dive into, unless you have questions, put them in the chat. But we're not going to talk about the specific, what tool should I use, editing, blah, blah, blah. I liked, Brooke, your point when we started talking about this and planning this. It's like, what did you say? You said something about.
Yeah. So in other words, like you wouldn't say, I want to write a best-selling book. So what word processor should I use?
Right.
It has nothing to do with that, as has to do with the topic and how you're writing it and all of that. It's the same thing with video. Okay. It will be helpful at some point to know, okay, is this going to be edited? But that shouldn't be your main focus. It should be, how are you connecting with your audience? Yeah. That's how you get, that's how you earn. I hate to use the word get. Sometimes I say that. That's how you earn loyal viewers.
And that's what we're looking for, is loyal viewers, right?
Yeah.
Not a one and done.
Exactly. You have to earn that. And no hack is going to have you do it. It's basically getting into their heads in a good way, not a manipulative, weird way.
No.
So everything's ethical that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. All above board, all legitimate ways that we're using video, the psychology, understanding humans and applying it to how we do videos. So we're going to walk you through quite a few things today. I'm so excited. This is the kind of stuff that I nerd out about all the time. I think you do too. You've got your, when we talked about this, you've got your techniques. You've taught me a couple of things that you think about. So guys, we're going to talk about, so basically what gets people to watch your videos, what gets them to want to come back and watch more videos, what gets them to ultimately want to do business with you. How do you get clients from this? So Brooke is going to talk about, we're both talking about very similar things. Just keep in mind, as we talk about this, it'll be about short form and long form, very similar principles, right? So short form, for those who don't know, short form is a short video, 30 to 90 seconds is how we define it. And then long form is kind of anything above that. We typically do say anything above 2 to 3 minutes is in that long form. So think YouTube for long form, not shorts, but the videos you'd watch, educational,
normal horizontal landscape
Yeah, the horizontal
videos.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Yeah.
landscape is commonly long form.
Mhm.
So think about that. So these principles apply to both. So if you're thinking about short form strategy or long form strategy or both, this will cover that. All right. So let's talk about some things that are true for video
Yeah.
across all channels, Brooke. The first thing we want to talk about is topic selection.
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Yes. First of all, it definitely has to be something that people care about. Now, this may seem obvious. However, the natural tendency for us is to write things that we care about. And, it could be, oh, well, people shouldn't, they need to know this, or they need to know that, or they need to know that. And they probably do. But if it's not something that they're really thinking about, then if you start talking about it, it's not going to capture their attention. So you have to give them a reason. One thing that's super important is, and I've heard, and Justin, you and I have talked about this, is you have to, in all of marketing, you have to give people what they want and then show them what they need.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think for an example. I'll just give a really quick example. Let's say I wanted to make a YouTube video about the headline of your LinkedIn profile, which is like they're the main words that appear right under your profile picture. Okay. But if someone does, some people do not understand that the headline is really important. They just kind of leave it as president at blah, blah, blah company. And then that's it. Right.
Yeah.
So my YouTube video will probably be something and probably packaged in a way like, not getting enough visitors to your profile. Here's the big problem, so what they want is more people visiting their profile and then sticking around and learning. What they need to know, that's the one, what they need to know is the headline's the problem. Okay. So that's an example where you're doing that. So again, if you want to talk about something people need, it has to be tied to something that they want and lead them in with something that they want.
Yeah. And this is the point when we were talking about in preparation for today, that was my biggest, like, oh, that's right. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that. And something, but you have to be reminded of it over and over again. This is a classic case of that, because that's my problem, Brooke. I do the same. I do, like, oh, people need to know about the psychology of, the trust and how trust is built, and it takes time and so many touch points in it, and you don't have a system. And so I'm talking about stuff that's like level 10, and people are still at level 1 going, how do I solve this problem? And ultimately you can't solve this problem without actually solving this problem. Maybe we need to flip it, but because make it more foundational but how do you connect it to something? And I think the challenge with that, of course, is we often think, well, it's not a one-to-one. Like, if somebody fixes their headline, it's not guaranteed to get them more profile visitors, right?
Right, but it's usually a big that's a big one. I mean, I wouldn't say if it's something like the skills section at the bottom of your LinkedIn profile. So, but there are certain things that are way more likely to influence that. And obviously in the beginning of the video, I would say something like, this is one of the biggest traps that people fall into. They neglect their headline, or they write a headline that is turning people away rather than drawing them in, so because it does happen most of the time. So as long as you are being, again, ethical about it, you're totally fine. But you need to start with what's actually on people's minds, and maybe even what keeps them. Well, hopefully their LinkedIn account doesn't keep them up at night, but things that do keep people up. I would feel bad. I mean, even LinkedIn doesn't keep me up at night, So
so talk about what they want versus what they need. Which I think that's a big one, even in and of itself. We could probably talk about that all day. Like, what does that look like? What prevents us from doing that? But we're going to cover more. How do you go about doing that for your business, Brooke? Because you have fantastic, anyone can go look at Brooke's YouTube channel. You've got what, 20,000 subscribers?
26, almost 26. It'll be like 26,000 next weekish or so.
Yeah. And your thumbnails look intriguing. Your topics look intriguing. I'm looking at everyone going, wow, this is so interesting. And I watched a couple, and you've mastered this for your business. How do you go about, so help us understand, how do you go about giving people what they want versus what they need, that is
Yeah.
authentically giving them still what they need. You're starting what they want and you're drawing it back to what they need.
Yes. So let me mention two. One of them you and I talked about before, and one of them actually I'm just thinking of at the top of my head right now that's huge. So I will bring it up. So, but one of the big things I do is I pay attention. Well, we all should be, obviously. You know, I pay attention to the conversations I'm having with my clients. What questions are they always asking? What misperceptions or misconceptions do they always have? You know, so these are things I know that are on their mind. But what I do is I have a running list of those ideas. Okay. And then I do something that I learned from, and by the way, just like a lot of times, you know, you'll hire a video coach or a LinkedIn coach or whatever, you know, I've hired YouTube coaches and I have a YouTube coach, by the way. And one thing I've learned that was huge, 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 I'll tell you how big it was if you want to vet topics, think of a topic that might be good and put into YouTube and see if it looks like the really small, when I say really small, like 5,000 or fewer subscribers, and you know they don't have the best lighting or the best scripting, but that particular topic is winning on their channel. And if you find that small, less resourced channels, even those channels are thriving with that particular topic, then your channel will also thrive with that particular topic. I typically look for if there are more views than subscribers on a particular topic, and that seems to be fairly consistent across a few channels, and the videos are a year old or less or younger, basically. So it's not like, okay, it got a whole bunch of views because it's 9 years old or something like that. So the first time I learned about this, there was this topic I really didn't want to do. It's about how to set up a LinkedIn company page. I'm like, no, I don't really want to do it. It's, don't want to do it. It's too much work. That's not the question people should be asking. It's about the profile, not the company page, the whole thing, right? But I was like, but all of my research was indicating this would be the best topic. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And I think I have 400,000 views on that, something ridiculous on that video. I've earned several $1,000s just from YouTube ad dollars, in addition to at least a couple clients I've earned who met me through that video. And again, it was about a topic I didn't want to do, but that's what people wanted. Now, again, in that video, I'm like, okay, I'm going to show you how to set this up, and we're going to go through step by step. But keep in mind, your profile is really more important. Like, I literally say that in the video. And since I've even done a follow-up video, like an updated version of it. Okay. But people still, so I just want to let you know that goes, I might have spent way more than time that I should have explaining that, but
no, this is great.
Really consider that, even if you're not doing YouTube. And I will tell you also that since I've been doing that, my topic selection is mostly based on that. And those are the same topics that I put in my email blasts. My email blast open rates, once I started doing that with those same topics I found from YouTube, went up 50%. So it's across channels.
Right. Because it's human psychology. It's not the platform specific stuff. This is the stuff people are curious about and they're thinking about, and we know that because they're searching for it on Google, and then they're finding your videos or LinkedIn algorithms recommending it to them. And so that's the beautiful thing about the principles we're teaching you today, is it applies across multiple mediums. It's not just video.
Right.
In fact, even when we talk about hooks and things like that, which we'll get to here in a little bit, we will, those are things obviously you can use in your writing. So topic selection, is a big one. That's what we're talking about, which is, how do I talk about stuff that my audience cares about that actually moves the needle for my business? There's like an overlap, like what they care about, a Venn diagram, what they care about, what moves the needle for my business. And that overlap is what you want to talk about. You're not going to talk about everything that you do in your business, and you're not talking about everything they care about, because everything they care about sometimes will not apply to what you can serve them out in your business. Right. It might be a good referral opportunity when you get them on a sales call and they're interested in this pain point that you don't solve. That's for another day. But today we're talking about the things that keep your audience up at night, or that really bug them, or they've been chewing on for 10 years. And I like the way you put that, misconceptions. I find I spend so much time talking about misconceptions when it comes to video. It's unbelievable how many misconceptions we have. And I suspect it comes from people just haven't done much of it. And so they're gathering, if you don't do the thing, but you learn about the thing for 10 years. You have all these ideas, but no actual experience. And so what I think of what's happening with video is a lot of people have a lot of ideas about video that they've learned or heard, and beliefs that aren't true, and even fears. And then when they get on a call with me, or we're in the DMs or whatever, a big part of my content is addressing misconceptions. And what's interesting when you say, you talk about the, the headline to getting a profile, or in my case, the big one for video is how do I get more views? And this is not just true for video, it's true for all areas, because people, we assume visibility, views is the solution to getting leads. And so a big part of my content is talking about, you want more views. Actually, what you need is something else. So views are important, but you need something else. But I like where this is helpful for me. And I'm getting free advice out of this too, guys. This is helpful for me, is remembering this is how you get the right views. Views are important, but this is how you get the right views. That's what I talk about. So this is helpful for me in thinking about how to structure my content to be talking about what my people care about, but actually bringing them to what they need.
And actually, you brought up a good point, because, I talked about the 400,000 views from that one video, and I might have only gotten 2 clients.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those 2 clients ends up being, very helpful for my business cash flow, and they're very nice people. So don't get me wrong, but there are other videos that have had just hundreds of views, that also, attract the same number of clients. So to your point, there are, just because there is a bit of a discrepancy there. If it were only just about views, then technically you could just become a Mr. Beast and just do those kinds of videos, and somehow you'll get clients for your video business.
Right.
Now, if you just have to take that logic to the extreme, and you realize that doesn't work. So, okay, what types of videos do work?
That's right. So let's finish up the topic selection idea here. What are some tools you've used for figuring out your topics? I really liked your system. It sounds like you've put together with, you were coached on how to find topics that are what would be successful topics for your channel, using YouTube as a research tool. There are some ways to do this that aren't quite as intense, for the average business
Why
owner.
not? Let's just do it all the way. No, go ahead.
Brooke,
I know you have really good ideas. Please share.
You are really good at researching things. Like, this is a superpower you have. Let's just admit that right now.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Has a superpower. So what are some simple tools we can use to do topic research that you've used?
You could also, for example, do a poll on LinkedIn, where maybe you're trying to narrow down into 4 different things. And I've seen other people do this, like, what should my next post be about? What should my next video be about? Or, I'm thinking of writing a mini ebook. What should it be about? That type of thing. I've also used Google Trends. Those are probably my big ones. How about you? What are other ones you've used?
I've used Google Trends. I did use that a little bit, but the problem with Google Trends I found is if you are in a very niche business, you tend not to see many results there, because it's looking for the overall trends. What are people searching for? So if you're looking for stuff that's fairly well searched, you'll get some stuff for Google Trends. But I have used it. I do like it. It's nice for quick checking of ideas. I really, 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 really like Keywords Everywhere. So this is a paid tool. I just renewed my subscription yesterday, $84 a year, and you get 100,000 search credits. And a search credit is basically every time you run a search on any platform. It can search on YouTube, it can search on Google, it can search on any search, I think TikTok even, I'm not sure. But every place where you can run searches, it's a browser extension. And so you turn it on, and then you run a search, and it gives you this beautiful, like, basically on the right side of your screen on a desktop, how many people are searching for this every month? How many people are making, what are people searching for that's tangential to this search that might be relevant to you? And it gives you trends. Are people going up, down? So it's basically grabbing all this data from Google Ads and from all these tools that exist on the internet, and it's compiling them into one single place. And I was using it yesterday, and I'll give you a very practical example of how you use it. So I'm getting into long form video too, Brooke. I'm following in your footsteps.
Good.
I'm a short form guy, but I've really, there's topics that are too meaty for short form. So I did this video about, basically the premise was, all right, $900 is our starting package. What can $900 buy you in visibility, regardless of us in B2B, for a B2B context. And so I interviewed 5 different PR, event sponsorship person, all these different things in B2B. What can $900 a month buy you?
Yeah.
And it was fascinating conversation. So we aggregated it, put it into a 13-minute video, and there's a conclusion at the end. So a couple different angles we could use. And I was like, what's the best angle here? To your point, what's the best angle would make somebody watch? Is it the $900 limitation? Is it B2B video? Is it, there's a lot of different angles, right? And sometimes we can get in our own heads doing this kind of work. So I used not vidIQ. I know that's one I think you've used, but the Keywords Everywhere.
Keywords Everywhere, yeah.
Keywords Everywhere, and I looked it up, and I gave me the direction I needed, and then I put the transcript into ChatGPT, and I used that as well. So I used ChatGPT and the summaries, and what am I really saying here? What is my audience going to care about for what I'm saying here? What am I promising, right? Because it still has to be something. If they watch the video, it can't be misleading. It has to be connected to what I did already.
Right.
And that was helpful. So ChatGPT and Keywords Everywhere were my tools to basically then figure out what should be in the thumbnail and what should be the title of the video. The topic was already decided. It had a good hook.
Cool.
But that's what I recommend.
Awesome. Yeah.
You've got a couple other ones in there, like I've seen Answer the Public.
Yeah, I've done Answer the Public before, although sometimes, and I always want to say ask the public, but it's answer the public. I have used that in the past. I will say the format that it comes out is it's too much for my brain.
Yeah.
But it doesn't jive with me, but some people swear by it. Yeah. Answerthepublic.com. And I think if it's still the same thing, you get 3 free searches a day.
Yeah, that sounds right. I've used it recently. Yeah. You get 3 free, and which is a lot if you're doing just a little bit of content, right?
Yeah. What
Answer the Public. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Yeah, sorry. And one other thing you could do, it's not as nearly as involved as Keywords Everywhere, but let's say you do a Google search on the topic you're thinking of, but you're not exactly sure, you're still exploring, and you know how you can scroll down a little bit and says, people have also asked. That is also really helpful because it might give you some ideas, and it's given me some ideas. But right now it's like I have so many ideas. I can't get through my ideas fast enough. Actually, I've been so busy with client work, I haven't done a video since January.
Yeah, but your videos are out there selling for you 24/7, and that's the nice thing. Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's why we want to think about video, folks, too. That it's like why do video? Is because it's selling for you 24/7 when you're not there. All right, topic selection is a big one, especially if someone's new to this. In your case, my case, sometimes it can feel like, okay, but this is we've done that. We figure out something that's enticing. Now, how do we format the videos to be interesting to watch? Because nothing's worse than clicking on what looks like a great video and you've got something that is not living up to the promise.
Right.
You click away and then your views go, and then no one watches it because the other one goes, this is terrible content. Why would we want anyone to see this? And they don't promote it to anybody.
Right.
So how do we, what do we think about? What's the first thing you think about here when it comes to keeping your audience engaged?
So if we're doing short form, it's going to be the first image that people see, and also the first 5, 10, 15 seconds, which is, whichever one has heard is called the hook. I will say for long form video, it's not only that, but it's also the title and the thumbnail, which is a whole different conversation. And I'd rather just kind of keep our conversation on the video itself. But the thing is that, let's say you see the title of the video and you're like, oh, I'm going to learn about this, or I'm going to be entertained about this, or I'm going to be inspired about this, right? There's some type of promise there in whatever they're seeing that is going to make them want to stop and watch more just to check it out. So you need to fulfill that promise. So let's say the title is something like, 3 things I've learned about how to deliver a speech. Okay. Something like that. And, you're like, okay, I have a presentation coming up. I really should watch this. And then the person starts talking. Yeah, here I am in beautiful Chicago, and it's a really nice spring day. The snow's finally melted, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I have a million things going on. My notifications are ringing. I'm supposed to be learning about how to deliver a better speech, and I'm learning about Chicago. and I'm going to scroll away because and one might say, well, that's someone having the attention span of a gnat, but it's not that. It's that on social media, and I would also argue on YouTube, even though it isn't exactly social media, people are more in scrolly mode. Okay.
I like that. Scrolly mode.
They're in scroll. It's the technical term, scrolly mode. They're not in scrolly mode everywhere. On Netflix, it's not like, well, I'm going to watch the first 30 seconds of this movie, and if I don't like it, I'm switching out. No, you're going to sit through at least, well, hopefully the whole thing. But worst case scenario, if it's really horrible, after a half hour, you might abandon it. But usually you'll watch the whole thing and just go through with it, but on social media, there's a behavior. So from the very beginning, you better either give maybe an interesting fact that people hadn't heard of, or maybe talk about the emotion. Let's go back to the LinkedIn headline example. It's like, you feel like you've, dressed up your profile and, you're ready to meet your next client, but for whatever reason, people just aren't visiting you. It feels like crickets. And, is there something wrong with you? Like, what's going on? It's like, yes, that's how I feel. I think I'll watch the next several seconds. Okay. So again, something that gets people's attention. Again, it could be hitting their emotions. It could be an interesting fact. It could be saying something that goes against the norm. But you strongly believe it and want to say something that's, I guess I'll use the word countercultural. I'm not exactly sure if that's the correct.
Counterintuitive or
counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It's just counter.
For what people do.
Exactly. But also it's nice to have a little bit of movement in there. As well. Or maybe just say something funny. So how about you?
Yeah, there's a lot of, and we're talking about hooks.
Yes.
Is what we're talking about. What is going to get someone to look at the rest of your video? Well, that all starts with the premise of the first few seconds of your video. I like the example of used Netflix or movies earlier. We've all sat through a bad movie more than once in our lives. And I would ask you, think back to what made you sit through that movie. You wanted to see how it ended because the movie started with an open loop. In psychology, an open loop is an unanswered question. We all have unanswered questions in our lives all the time. A dirty desk is an open loop. It is something that is meant to be resolved that is unresolved. It's a question meant to be answered. So a movie, even if it's a bad movie, will create in the beginning an open loop. The premise. What is the problem? What is the hero trying to accomplish here? And we all have different various abilities of being able to tolerate little open loops or bad open loops. I can have a friend who has a messy desk all year round, and you would think he's not affected. He's technically affected, but it doesn't bother him like it would bother me. I can watch through a terrible movie because the loop was interesting enough to close at the end and close that open loop and be like, okay, that's done. It was a terrible movie, but now it's done. Whereas my mother-in-law, bless her, she's a wonderful woman. She won't watch 2 seconds of that movie because she ain't got time for that. So we all have varying. And so social media is just billions and billions of open loops you're creating over and over. Not you, but everyone. Every time you read a post, opening a loop, is it interesting enough to close? Nope. Done. Move. Next one. Is it even clear enough? And that might be why we're not getting the views we want. It's because we're not making we're not opening that loop. We're not making the tension clear enough. Why should I keep reading? Or in this case, why should I keep watching?
And that brings up a really good point because a lot of times we do hear about, okay, we need to bring up the problem because people want a solution, but there's another step that we also need to mention, and that's the stakes. In other words, what are the stakes if this problem isn't solved? So let's say, let's go back to Netflix and say it's like some type of rom-com. And by the way, if I may have permission to ruin everyone's viewing of all movies for the rest of their lives, however it is in the beginning will be the completely opposite of how it is at the end. That's the ending. So, but let's say we have the beginning and you have this girl from Kansas who just, got her first job in the big city, but, she's, and her fiance back in Kansas is a complete jerk and she doesn't know it. So, but the stakes are, if she doesn't make her way doesn't find her way in New York really well, she's probably going to lose her job or get mugged. I don't know. It depends on, I guess, what
there's
part.
some stakes of some kind.
And she'll end up married. And if she doesn't know about what's going on with her fiance, she's going to end up in this really soulless marriage. So those are big stakes. And those are other reasons. It's like, okay, this is a little bit of a hokey Hallmark kind of rom-com, but oh, I really would hate it if she had a bad happy ending. So, or bad happy ending, a bad ending. So I'll keep on watching. And the same thing happens with our social media posts, and the same thing happens with our video. What would happen if you don't solve it? Or let's say it's a LinkedIn headline. Okay. Let me tell you about the biggest thing one of the biggest things that tends to draw people away from your profile. And I will say the people who don't address it, are going to stay in the same boat, and they're going to still have those crickets, and they're going to waste time doing other things on LinkedIn that are not going to be worth their time. So let's talk about it now. So there's an example of stakes.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, talking about the stakes, if you can learn to master that, I would argue it's probably the biggest chunk of what makes for effective content in general. But especially videos. People will stick around, like we said, people will stick around through a bad movie to get the stakes resolved, to get that open loop closed. So if you can master the stakes, you can master video content, which would give you the clients you're looking for. So we've got different kinds. So we're not just talking about hooks now, we're talking about stakes. So hooks are those things like let's put a little bow and close that open loop that's in my mind right now, which is talk about hooks, different ways to get attention, right? So you got to stop someone from scrolling if they're on if they're swiping and you're doing a short form video. And movement hooks are really important for short form video, more so I would argue than long form, because you are trying to stop someone from scrolling and going like, this is the only thing, someone's thumb is the only thing preventing you from not having any views on your video. So if you want someone to stop doing this on the phone, and they're going to pause, what's going to make them pause? Well, movement hook is helpful. So you jump into frame, or you sit down, or you have a zoom in, and that can be difficult in B2B context. We don't want to be TikTok-y. I get that. Like I have so many clients that are like, I don't want to be like dancing. No, you don't have to dance on TikTok. Like you can add movement in post-production. You can do transitions. That's an example of a visual hook. So what's gonna get someone to stop. But to your point, you can have the statements, and those are the bulk of the 99.9% of the hooks we do for our clients. It's like, what are you going to say that's going to draw somebody in? It's going to make someone go, oh, that's interesting for me. Raises the stakes potentially. And, oh, I want to know where are they going with this? What's going to be the end of this? And then hopefully they'll watch to the end. So we have the hook, and then we have the stakes, and the stakes is what happens if I don't solve this problem. And so when we talk about these hooks and these stakes that we're building, have you found, Brooke, a good way to think about the stakes when you do your content? I know it's probably second nature for you now, but think back to when you started talking about stakes. Any tips for our viewers for how to make that more clear, make those stakes more clear right at the front end?
Well, pretend you have anxiety, or if you already have anxiety, this is a good use for it. So in other words, it's like, if I don't solve this problem, what are the worst case, what are the small case,
the what ifs.
The what ifs.
Yeah.
It's the what ifs. And, and I will say on occasion, I'm actually in a good, happy mood, and it's hard for me to think of those what ifs. And in those cases, I will admit, I will go to ChatGPT and be like, okay, give me some ideas on some stakes here. And I just do want to let you know, I still write my own scripts because it needs to come from me, but I do use AI sometimes as a brainstorming tool when I'm feeling a little brain dead, but I need to get a script written. And we'll talk about scripting and outlining very soon, but it's okay to tap into other sources. But chances are you probably already know the answer, or think back to when you've talked to different clients. What are some worries that they were expressing?
Yeah.
But I'm a worrier, so it's pretty easy for me to think of like
yeah, that's the tip. If you are a worrier, you're gonna get this so well.
or call me and I will tell you all the bad things that probably will never happen, but you should be aware of.
But and that's the beautiful segue into what I say is the best way to get stakes. So this is the challenge I see in my own life, and I see a lot of really smart people deal with, is that, the stakes aren't really, they're rare. It's like when you talk to a doctor and you talk to them about, oh, doctor, I have this medical condition. What does the doctor do? They do Occam's razor. What's the most likely thing that is here? Oh, it's just this simple thing. But the doctor knows, or they know from research or experience, there are stakes. If you don't address this, there's a 1% chance it could be this thing over here, right? And so there is a time and place to talk about extreme stakes, but there's also time and place to talk about any kind of stakes. The problem is, what I'm getting at is we tend to minimize the stakes. Just like a doctor or a nurse will tend to, if you've ever been in a medical facility, I don't know how many times it's happened to you. I know it's happened to me and my loved ones. Somebody's prognosis was diagnosed as the most likely when it wasn't the most likely. And it was no fault to that medical provider. It was actually an extreme stake because it wasn't likely, but it can happen. And so that's what we're trying to avoid. There's a spectrum of stakes. So in my case, what I tend to do is, and this is related to what we're talking about, because I tend to minimize the stakes for my clients. It's actually, if they don't do this, it's not really going to lead to that many problems. And, I really don't know if it's going to be that bad. So I really like what you said. Talk to your clients because they're thinking about those stakes. And you can say, hey, you're thinking about these stakes and that can be true. Here's how you solve it. So you're the voice of reason. You're walking them back from the edge. You don't have to hype up the stakes. You can just reach them where they are, where they're thinking about the stakes. Or if they're not thinking about the stakes, which is we often run into that, like, especially in, think about selling life insurance, right? Everybody's like, I want life insurance. Nobody actually buys it. Help them remember there are stakes here. But you don't have to sit there in the extreme end of the spectrum. You just have to remind them from time to time, there are stakes here. And this could be why you're experiencing X, Y, Z. So let's talk about how to solve that. And then you walk them back through, you build the foundation, you do this thing. And that's a process of learning how to do that. And I would argue not by doing it yourself and fighting it yourself, but talking to a Brooke, or in this case, I would argue talking to your clients. So if you're talking to clients or prospects or networking on a regular basis, you're involved, that helps you have a steady stream of stakes in your mind that you can address, or like we talked about the topics. So we've got the hook, we got that movement, maybe we've got that interesting stake-filled premise question. What happens if, I was talking with so-and-so and they didn't solve this problem and 3 years later, they were bankrupt, whatever that stakes, that's called a hook. What about these mini hooks? I've got it in our notes here. We got to talk about that, Brooke.
Mini hooks are just little mini versions of it. Let's go back to that, horrible like Hallmark rom-com or something like that. Let's say the girl who's the young woman who's in, I'm so on PC, who's in, New York, and one little mini thing that's going on is that she has a boss who's like just completely mean. Okay. And, this, and there are some really weird office politics. So that's like almost like a mini story going on. So, and that will end up being resolved at the end, and everyone's going to get along.
Because it turns out he's actually the really nice guy that she always needed in her life.
Yeah, exactly.
We're coming up with a plot here on this podcast.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's a very complicated Hallmark movie. So, but the key is that that's an example of a mini hook there. I like to sometimes talk about movies because we've all seen movies. Yeah. Okay, so how does that relate to a video that you're doing? So you're teaching a big lesson, but let's say I might say something like, let's say there's a concept I want to talk about, right? But I want to talk about it like 2 minutes later. I'll say, you know what? And this brings up the fact that blah, 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 blah. But before we get, and we need to know this because blah, blah, blah. But before we get there, we need to first talk about this. So I've already talked about, I've said, there's something you need to know. I'll get there in a second. Okay. And I'm not going to make people wait unnecessarily if I should just be talking about it right away. But if there's something that I want them to hold on. So it's almost like giving them little mini previews of things that I'm going to be talking about. Or, you might be wondering, let's say this is 1 minute in, you might be wondering, blah, 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 blah. That's going to end up being a point, we're going to get to that in a couple minutes. We do need to talk about blah, blah. So there's some mini hooks. But that way it's people need to consistently be reminded. And again, you're going to see this in long form Netflix movies, and you'll see it in even good 30-second short form videos. There could be a mini hook, maybe like at least one mini hook, if not two, in even a short video.
Yep. You can build them in. Yeah. So you're basically raising the tension right in the beginning with the stakes. And then so if you think of this as a timeline in terms of hooks, like you got to get, if you think of attention over time and attention on one axis and time over the other, you want to get attention. and then keep attention. And then that's what the mini hooks do. They're like little
Yeah.
stakes in your umbrella. Let's pretend you have this giant umbrella and you're trying to get people to get to the end of what, not umbrella, but like what is a tent? You got a giant tent. So the stakes are the mini hooks are the little stakes you put throughout the tent to get people from the start of the tent to the end of the tent. And because attention does droop over time with anything, it's true of anything. With books, I can't tell you how many books I've started that I'm like, oh, I can't finish that book. It's just normal human nature to not finish things because we lost sight of the stakes. So this mini hooks are those, and I'm going to talk about this. It's very simple. I don't want it to sound more complicated than it is. I really like your example. This is very pure and easy to understand. And okay, well, we're going to talk about that here. And we're going to talk about that next. It's a simple one if you're doing a talking head video for your B2B, which we all are in this context. So then let's talk about scripting and outlining. I want to hear your thoughts. I'll go because you've got some really cool ways of doing scripts. I've never seen before. Thanks. That's a mini hook, by the way. If you don't know if you
no, hold on.
We're doing this live. I'm previewing things. So but for me, with short form video, we're talking about 60-second videos. I'll kind of like ruin the vibe for everybody. We don't do scripts and we don't recommend scripts. And the reason for that is because the whole point of video content that connects with your buyer is the kind where you're having a conversation with them through the lens versus, let me pull up my script here, adjust my glasses, and okay, you don't see my script, but today we're going to talk about a thing that's really important to know, right? The vibe is completely different.
Yeah.
You're using a script in any short form video, and I would argue in a long form, and we'll talk about the long form stuff here, but if you're using a script, it will kill the performance of your video. And what I mean by that is you will not get any sales from it. You'll not get any views. And of course, if you don't get views, you won't get sales at all. So you want to build a connection with your buyer. How do you do that? Well, I would argue instead of scripting out your videos, find a buddy. Use what I call the content buddy system. And it's basically you go and find somebody, colleague, coworker, someone that you have a good relationship with, and you ask each other questions about each other's businesses. You record it, and with the phone, just with your phone, you record yourself, you get yourself framed in, hit record, and then you should have a conversation. And then guess what? You've got content for days because they're going to ask you questions that are two reasons. Number one, they're going to ask you questions that are very important to your business that you probably aren't thinking about. We were talking about topic selection earlier. Why do we have to create our own topics when people have topics all around us that are very relevant for us? Questions we can answer. So that solves that problem right away. They're going to have questions that your buyers probably have. Even if they're not your buyer, they're probably going to have very relevant questions. And number two, it's going to put you much more at ease when you answer the question. And you're going to actually show people what you're really like versus this wall of performance that we all tend to think of when we do any kind of video content. So that's the biggest difference. And you can get away with that with short form because it's only 60 seconds. You don't have to sound like a genius for 9 to 10 to 20 minutes. You just need a little snippet of what you're like. And that builds trust, that builds connection, that builds rapport. And that's what earns business, is somebody that goes, oh, wow, this person knows what they're doing. And they seem really like they know what they're doing, and they seem really like a decent person. Yeah. I think we don't talk about that enough. Like kind people, smart people want to work with smart people, but kind people want to work with kind people too. Like that know, like, trust factor. You hear it a lot. And that's why video wins clients, is because it solves that little gap. We all forget about that is there online, is like people get to know your content, but there's still a gap between the sale. And that gap, I would argue, is that likability factor. It's that kindness factor. It's that, could I get along with them? Could I have a great cup of coffee? Could I sit across the table from them? And I'm not saying you have to work with every client that likes you, or that you have to like every client. We have all worked with clients we don't like, but there is that factor you need to deal with in a B2B setting, because we don't do business with companies. We do business with people.
Right. Right.
So that's the short form answer to, should you do scripting? No, find a buddy.
Right.
What do you think, Brooke, on long form? I want to hear your thoughts.
For long form, now I do know of one financial advisor who literally will do a long form video in one take without scripting and get it perfect. He's a demigod. Okay, like I know
they're rare. Those people,
they're rare, and I don't want to be like sacrilegious here, but I can't do that. Okay, now I'm on the other extreme, where I script every single word, but I'm going to give you another alternative. So stay tuned in about 30 seconds. Okay. But mini hook, but what I do is I script every word, and then I have the camera rolling, and I'll take like a paragraph at a time, and I just kind of read through, and I mostly get the words, and then I just kind of say it as best I can. Now, for whatever reason, a live stream, I could just talk. When it comes to like a recording where it's me and my phone and just the fisheye lens of the phone, I go crazy, and like I
Get
stutter,
in your own head.
and it's horrible. So I have to, about a 10-minute video is about 50, I'm not joking, 50 minutes of filming. Okay. So because I'm just so bad. Okay. But what's happening is I'm saying the same sentence or sentences or paragraph over and over again. And probably by the fifth take, I'm like, okay, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? That's the most engaging one. And that's the one I keep. And then, so
you have to be frustrated to get a good take.
Yes, that's all people see. They're like, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. But they don't see today we're going to talk about LinkedIn headlines. Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's great. So what we're saying basically, folks, is if you want to do long form, get angry, and then it'll be great on the first take.
Yeah, anger, anxiety, these are all things that will help you with your videos. Like tap into it. No, but the other option, I'll give you another option. Some people would rather just work off an outline, and that's totally fine. You can do that. However, I would still encourage you for long form to script the first 30 seconds because when you're on YouTube, in your analytics, you see these audience retention charts. In other words, where do people drop off? The first 30 seconds are where most people are going to drop off. After those first 30 seconds, most people will stay. So your goal is to have that number as high as possible by the end of the first 30 seconds. So I would argue to at least pay attention to that, even if you just want to outline the rest of it.
Absolutely. The hook is, and we're talking about still the hook, right? The stakes. What is the video about? What's the premise? What are we talking about? And in a very engaging, interesting way. And it still applies to short form as well. And that is the problem with short form in the Content Buddy system. If you just hit record, let's say you're doing podcasting, that's in fact one of the reasons podcast clips are not the best way to do short form content. That's one of my things I talk about, is because you often don't have a compelling hook. There's no context. You have no idea. It's just like you stepped into the room and someone's talking already with somebody else and you're like, what's going on? And you kind of leave. So that's why you have such huge drop-off rates on podcast clips. So the way we solve that in our agency, and you can't solve, you can get good at this. You can kind of preform your hooks ahead of time, but it's an in-between version of like the outlining versus having someone ask you about it. And you could do that. You could go into a conversation in the Content Buddy system and say, hey, can you ask me about these 5 things? But then you're going to miss out on the opportunity to get asked questions that are actually relevant, potentially more relevant to your business. So there's a tension there, but we do this with our clients, and this isn't something you can do necessarily. You would not expect your colleague to do this, but we coach them on the hook. So I heard you say this, Brooke. Can you say this now? Here are 3 things everyone's missing about their LinkedIn strategy, or whatever it was you were just telling me about. And then they say it verbatim. We take that at the end, put it at the front, and there's your hook. But that's how we solve that with our business model. It's not just that our clients are showing up and talking. We're actually giving them those hooks from live feedback. The producer's doing that. You can't do that in the basic Content Buddy system. And that's why we make money, because people recognize that.
Yes, no, that's a great method. I love that. And that's why, what you do can be super helpful for a lot of people who they recognize how video can really help them attract new clients, but they just need some extra help with it. And
they need some extra help. Yeah. And you can do it, right? You can do it yourself. I do it myself. You do it yourself. There are a lot of people that do it themselves, but if you want to avoid the stress and that anxiety, and you still want something that's compelling, I recommend working with in the Content Buddy system, or, talking to your clients, especially, is a big takeaway for me. It's like, get those stories going, get those, what are the stakes? What are they worried about?
Yeah.
So let's wrap this up, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers, folks. If you have any specifically, we can answer anything about this stuff. But when you have done video, Brooke, can you think back to the first time you decided, I'm going to embrace video? Because for you, it was long form and it was YouTube. What made you decide? What was the gap you were solving with long form videos, and any kind of videos, in fact?
So I started it in the summer of 2020, which some people may remember was like, seemed like the death of marketing, as well as obviously just a huge amount of darkness in general with everything going on. I don't want to over dramatize marketing when there are worse things going on around that time, actually. But it was my main marketing channel, which was I mean, besides obviously LinkedIn, was like networking in person, and that went away. So I was like, okay, I need to step up my game and do something. So I will tell you, my first 80 videos were trash.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them, not most of them, maybe like, I'm sorry, excuse me, maybe like a third of them have been unpublished. They're like still, or they're unlisted. You're not going to find them.
Published, but you took them off from public view.
Yeah, they're not listed. They're still floating there, but you know, but like I remember the first one, I was like sitting on my living room sofa and I had a piece of paper and I remember saying, "Hi, welcome to my living room. Okay, so today we're going to talk about da, 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 da." And I just kind of did it that way. And it was like, it was horrible. It was horrible. And I didn't know anything about editing either. So I felt like I had to do everything in one take. And so I was looking at a piece of paper and, yeah, I mean, I think at best I trimmed off the part where I turned off the camera. I think that was, that was like all I was able to manage at the time. So it's often said, if you're going to do it yourself, your first will be your worst. It will be. Embrace it. I'm going to be starting at some point very soon, hopefully, a cooking channel, a YouTube cooking channel. And I'm freaking out over all the camera work because I'm used to one single camera. But now I need multiple cameras and I need something hovering over. And I'm like, and what about the lighting? It's in a different place than I'm used to. It's not going to be in this room. What am I going to do? And I'm like, you know what? Your first is going to be your worst.
First is
and that's okay.
I love that. First, and it might be your first 10. My first was definitely my worst. The reason I got into video content, and this is the gap, my business, if you're running a business that relies on high trust, so you've got high stakes, you know, 50,000, 50, you know, 500,000, $1 million sale, you're probably selling not to one individual, but multiple individuals within an organization. And they're all going to be vetting you. They're all going to be thinking about this. They're going to be overthinking about this. And what's the number one question on their mind is, can we trust this option? Can we trust this person? What do we know here? And so video can be your, and it was for me, unfair advantage for building trust when you're not in the room.
You know what? You're exactly right. Because I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me. They're like, you know, I've been watching your videos for the last 2 months. I didn't even know them, but they've used that time to take the time. And I'm going to be speaking with a prospective client today. And it was someone, actually, I kind of know her IRL, but it's, you know, more of like an acquaintance. But she had been seeing my videos and then she recommended me to someone else who watched my videos. And now that person, almost the same organization, now I'm speaking with the third and I think the final decision maker who's been watching my videos.
Right. So it helps you, like we said, really early on, guys, if you're paying attention, it helps you build trust when you're not in the room. More than anything else, I can't tell you how many LinkedIn posts that I've come and gone, and I have no idea who wrote that post. In fact, this is the one that bugs the heck out of me, that I'm learning things every day from using LinkedIn, and I cannot tell you who I learned it from. That person does not get credit. And so I'm building my business off of free advice that someone will never get any credit for it in my mind. But you know what happens when I watch a video of somebody teaching me something? I can still remember from over 10 years ago, a series. It was a 100 video series from Donald Miller of building a story brand, that business.
Yes.
10 years ago, he set up a landing page. He said, sign up for this. I'll give you a tip about business every day. It was a 2 to 5 minute video. He was in the same setting every day talking about something. And I learned so much. I can still remember Donald Miller, the exact setting he was in, because it was a visual medium. It was a guy talking, and that's how we connect as humans. We don't connect with other humans through text. Text is important. We learn, we read books. I love books. Lord of the Rings is my favorite book. I love reading books. But if you want to connect with the author of the book and you want to give them your money, you need to do video. And that's why I do video. That's why our clients do video.
Good.
Where can someone learn about you, Brooke? Let's wrap it up here and let's do some.
Yeah, no problem. Go to look up Brooke Miles, LinkedIn consultant, or Brooke Miles Delaware Shout Out. That's the name of my company. Just search for me in the toolbar and connect with me. I'd love to have a conversation with you and see what you're looking for with LinkedIn. And if I can help you, hopefully I can. But if I can't, then I will direct you to the right place.
All right. And you guys can learn about me on LinkedIn as well. And I'm also going to put in the chat the free video. And if you want that, put it in the chat. I don't know if everyone's going to see it. The chat doesn't work the same way I think it does. I think on LinkedIn, it shows up. So on YouTube and on Facebook, where this is streaming, there is a link there to get with us, we do a free video session. So if this has been a challenge for you to do video and you're like, I've been wanting to solve this forever, it's been on the back burner, I know it's important, it's awkward, it takes time, I don't know what to say. All of the problems we've solved with our business model. And if you've got the desire to solve it with your business, that's what our free video session is, that first step to see if this is for you. And then our plans start at $900 after that. And if you like working with that free video session, we'll talk about if that makes sense for you, for your business to do that, to continue working with us after that. So that's my call to action for you guys. Any questions? Let us know in the comments. I'm seeing a lot of comments, no questions. Like people are like, Doug is like really giving some summary statements here that are really nice and succinct.
Yes. And you know what? And I'm using Justin's platform, and so I just clicked on comments now. I'm like, oh, we should have been acknowledging these. So thank you everyone for commenting.
Well, I'm not seeing any questions.
I'm just seeing the comments like this now. So thank you.
Yeah, we got some great ones. Thank you everybody for participating. Yeah, this is your chance. Get some free consulting, free advice. This is it from Book or myself. Otherwise, thank you for being here, guys. And the replay will be available as soon as it's over, because that's how LinkedIn Lives work. While we wrap this up, because we do have a couple more minutes, I'll wait for people to ask any questions. I'll have a question for you, Brooke. What role? You're welcome, Anne. Yes.
Thank you, Anne.
What would you say in your, you're doing YouTube videos. Do you do LinkedIn videos? Or Brooke, do you ever move any of them over there?
What I do is I take some of my YouTube shorts and bring them over to LinkedIn.
Okay.
And they work well. Yeah.
They work well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see lower views on LinkedIn too, I assume, than LinkedIn Shorts, right? Yeah. LinkedIn doesn't promote organic videos, which that in and of itself is a different conversation. We talk about like views on platforms. Have you thought about posting your long form videos to LinkedIn? Because it lets you do that.
I sent a link. The thing is that my YouTube videos are formatted for YouTube. In other words, at the very end, I'm saying, and watch this video next in the right-hand corner, and YouTube allows you to have that thing where you.
That's right. That doesn't work.
So I'd have to rework the ending, and there are only so many hours in the day. So I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is it ideal to put a link? No, but I'm going to do it. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm just going to do it. Yeah. No, I have seen, there's a competitor of mine in the UK, and they do like very custom videos, very different kind of, I say competitor. He's not, he does video, but that's about as close as it gets to what he does very bespoke custom stuff. And I've noticed he started uploading his YouTube videos, long form, to LinkedIn. Yeah. So you get those awkward endings at the end. It's like, there's no link here, but it was still interesting because that's how I ended up watching a whole 10-minute video of his on LinkedIn. I've been noticing that. So I was wondering if you did that yourself.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, just the link. And I do like how Doug says he's just trying to put everything in layman's terms.
Spelling it like his last name.
Love it. Love it.
Great. Oh, Doug, that's memorable. Oh, Doug Lehman sharing things in layman's terms.
Yes.
Yeah, I was curious about that because I publish my short form everywhere, and that's a whole, another technical discussion.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you should still take that content and repurpose it in different ways. Obviously, like that could be that short is or short form video is a great long form post. I've done it where I just take that script basically from a short form video and it's a post, and it works. You might as well.
You might as well. Yeah, we do that too. We take the short form script, and then what we do is I send it over to my content writer, Lydia, and she takes the script and then she uses that as a foundation for building off of it. And then you've got your post for LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it also doesn't have to be completely different. Yeah, this stuff works. Cool. All right. Well, we're not getting any questions. So either we scared everyone away with all the work you have to do.
I think we did. Because we talked about anxiety quite a bit.
Yeah, it can be. So I want to encourage you guys, you don't have to start with a long form to do LinkedIn. Yeah. LinkedIn is not optimized for long form anyways. Short form is where you can start, and that's our agency model. Or you can do it yourself using Content Buddy system. Like I said, find a buddy, have a conversation, record it, take the clips, use an AI like Opus or whatever to get those clips if you want to save money and not hire an editor. But just a heads up, you will have to do some editing. And everyone thinks it's like, oh, it's just going to take care of it all. It doesn't. There's always tweaking you have to do. Yeah. But that's what I recommend to get started, because people, like I said, are going to want to know, like, and trust you beyond just know that you know your stuff.
Yes.
Like they want to know what you're like. So I encourage you guys to take it seriously in 2026. So,
Great.
all right, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we'll see you in the next
Jacqueline.
one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.